whether you manage to teach or share anything on the message to anybody else, whether to your children, to your nieces, to your friends, to your family. Anybody manage to talk something about the message? Andrea?
We just shared during sale with Chen and Cindy.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Andrea?
Not the whole thing, but one part of it with a friend.
Okay, good. Which part do you talk about to your friend?
God cares. I think that's the easiest.
Okay, good. How do you do that? What do you share?
Actually, it's because yesterday I failed my driving test yet again. So I was talking about it with a friend and just was telling him that. So he was saying like, you know, don't be sad because like bad things and all happen for a reason. So I just shared about how it does. And that's why I believe that there is a God who is planning and allowing all these good and bad things to happen so that, you know, I can really grow as a person and enjoy life. And that's what life is about, being cared for by God. Yeah. He didn't really respond much. He just said,
Okay. Cheryl, when you met for sale with Qian Yi and who was it? The other person? Qian Yi and who?
Cindy.
Huh? Cindy. Cindy. What is one or two things that you mainly highlight?
That our self-worth is not by how we feel about ourselves, but our identity comes from God, and because we are created in God's image.
Okay.
Then we talked about we used Psalms 8 to adore God, and we shared our past one of our past experience where we felt that God cared for us.
Okay, good. How about Mervin? Manage to share anything about the message?
No, never.
Okay. So it's all right, but I want us to begin, thinking about and so that we are able to retain what we learned after 1 hour message. Oh, sorry, Dora, no. Because I don't see your face, I missed you out also. Okay, hopefully I can see your face.
I think she's there. You can ask her.
Okay, in the chat already say no. Okay, never mind. So I am going to do a bit of exercise and I need you all to participate. So if you remember last week, I talked about a few things, a few key points so that after the message, right, we are able to review, reflect, okay, and try to put things together. And I put together a simple template for us to think and so that we're able to share. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, so if you remember, the first thing I talked about is talk about impress. A bit small, huh? Let me increase it a bit. Okay, impress, then important, change, implement. All right, so these 4 things to consider after we listen to a message. All right, what is impress? So really, impress is what impressed me. Hold on, let me adjust my video a bit. Then what impressed me, what is new? What about good stories? Any one of you managed to tell any stories? Anyone? Nobody use stories. Okay, so consider using stories.
We used the subway story with the parents.
Qian Yi shared with the parents. Qian Yi shared with the parents. The parents not in our church, man.
Nope.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that was a good story. Good that Qian shared. Then, so story, so some things to help us to remember. Then the next one is important. Okay, what is most important for the sermon? Yeah, the idea is that we want to feel, we want to capture something that we feel, which is what impresses us. And second thing is to, when you look at a message, think about it after I hear 1 hour message, what is the important thing that I need to extract out? I don't want to miss the point. Yeah. Then the next thing is change. What change is required? Okay, it can be mindset change, and there is also habit change, right? Just try to, I think these are the most practical ones so far. But this change is not talking about your application, okay? This change is simply looking at the message and say, okay, this message addresses certain change required inside us. We just want to capture the change that is required in this message, because the message must bring about transformation, right? So we need to be able to capture there's a change in, there's a requirement for change from this message. Then the last one is implement. This is where you really implement, okay? So implement, how can I implement starting tomorrow? Okay, then we're going to run through these 4 points, and I will need you all to just do your memory dump it inside the chat. Then after that, we're going to populate this as an exercise, okay, for us to review. So let me go to the next slide. Hang on, impress. Go up here, copy, paste. Okay. So I'd like you all to type inside the chat what impressed you. Hey, Wanan, hello. Type inside the chat what impressed you. Just throw things in here. We're going to populate this one, and so that we are able to do the exercise together. What impressed you from yesterday's message?
Yesterday.
Sorry, last week's message. Okay. So I will just put mine first. Let me see. Let me turn on the chat as well so I can see. Just throw it in there, then later on I'll just copy paste in there, yeah? So mine. Okay, don't have to put a lot, just give me like one sentence, 1 point. If it's the same as somebody else, it's totally fine. Okay. Message to everybody, don't need to private message me. Okay, how about Mervin and Wanan? Okay. Copy this. Please. Then one. Okay, thank you. Did I miss Mervin one?
We are still writing.
Okay. Okay, take a look at what other people write as well. Okay, as soon as Mervin is done, I will be putting a video to watch. Okay. Thank you. So this is the first part, yeah? Okay. So you see, so there is a story and Sullivan, there is story of Marcel, and then we captured mainly about the image, captured about God's care, captured about we are made. So these are some things that impress. These may not be the most important part, but what impressed you, okay? That so that because at the end of the message, you should be able to feel something that God speaks to you. So this is about impress. Now I'm gonna put a video to show you. This video is about Nikki Cruz. Does anybody know who Nikki Cruz is? No idea. Does anybody has anybody heard or watched this video called "The Cross and the Switchblade"? Wanandit. Cross and Switchblade. Wanandit. Oh wow! You read the book. Power. Okay, good. So I'm gonna show you a testimony by Nikki Cruz on the Cross and the Switchblade. It was made into a movie, about 1 hour plus. It's free online right now, and this talks about this gang leader who was hopeless. You can see that the heart is like so hardened and so hopeless. You know, cannot be changed, and only God can do it. There's no doubt. So in this video, I will show, it shows us the potential of God's image inside us and how through one man is able to bring about change. Now, when you watch this video, think about yourself, okay? Think that there is a potential inside you, God's image inside you, that if God can change Nikki Cruz, God can change you also. Second, when you look at other people who seems to be hopeless, who seems to be helplessly hopeless, they are failure, right? They always repeat the same mistakes. And to look at them and say, no, God can do a miracle inside them. It may not be now. You may have tried over 10 over years. This person has not changed, and do not want to you know, give you false hope and say, oh, God can change this person within a week or a month when he has not changed over 10 years. No, that's not it. But the faith that we need to have, like Abraham, to wait until his age 100, then he get his very own son. The faith that continue on even when things are not happening, to keep believing, okay, and not say hopeless, give up, okay. In God, all things are possible. So I'm going to share the video right now, and I'm going to enjoy the video. It's an 18-minute video, but I think probably we'll finish in about 15. On where is it? B. Where did it go? Me? How come missing? Let me restart this. Ayo, gotta restart this. Bear with me. Now stop share. Then I start share. There it is. Okay, let's start.
It was a late winter's night in 1958, and a skinny, small-town preacher from Pennsylvania was in his living room reading Life magazine. He was skimming through its pages, finding nothing of interest, until he came across something that caught his attention. It was a pen drawing of a trial taking place in New York City, 300. He started to turn the page over, but his eyes were captivated by the eyes of one of the figures in the drawing, a boy, one of the 7 boys on trial for murder. What he saw in the boy's eyes was a look of bewilderment and hatred and despair. And as he stared at the picture, he began to weep. His heart was broken, not for the 15-year-old boy who was murdered, but for the murderers themselves. The boys were all teenagers, and they were members of a gang called the Dragons. Beneath their picture was the story of how they had gone into Highbridge Park in New York and brutally attacked and killed a 15-year-old polio victim named Michael Farmer. The 7 boys stabbed Michael in the back 7 times, and then went away wiping blood through their hair, saying, "We messed him up good." The story revolted him, and it turned his stomach. In his little Pennsylvania mountain town, such things seemed mercifully unbelievable. But what he couldn't believe was what he heard next from God. Go to New York City and help those boys. He laughed out loud. Me go to New York? A country preacher barge into a situation he knows less than nothing about? Go to New York City and help those boys. The calling was still there, vivid as ever, and it was clearly inspired by God. He walked around the study, seeking to understand what was happening to him. Each time he came to the desk, his attention was drawn to that magazine. Tears began to stream down his face. February 28, 1958. The country preacher sat in a courtroom in New York City. He sat and watched as the trial of one of the gang members took place. As the judge announced that court was adjourned, the preacher suddenly felt moved by God to speak with the judge on behalf of the boys. He grabbed his Bible in his right hand and rushed to the front of the room. "Your Honor," he called, "Your Honor, please, would you respect me as a minister and let me have an audience with you?" He was quickly grabbed by 2 guards and ushered out of the courtroom. As they escorted him out, it caught the attention of the newsmen waiting in the corridor. One reporter called out, "Hey, Reverend, what's that book you got there?" "My Bible." "You ashamed of it?" "Oh, of course not." "No? Then why are you hiding it? Hold it up where we can see it." The naive young preacher held up the Bible, and the camera bulbs flashed. That image was plastered on newspapers all over the country, with headlines such as, "Bible-waving country preacher interrupts a murder trial." The young pastor's name was David Wilkerson, a small-town country preacher called to the center of New York City to minister on crime-filled, drug-infested street corners. He would set up on a street corner and preach about the power and love of Jesus Christ. He would gather crowds of hundreds, but he specifically reached out to a young man named Nikki Cruz. Nikki Cruz was the vicious leader of the Mau Maus, a violent street gang notorious for the use of the switchblade as their weapon of choice. Here's Nikki Cruz years later, telling of when he first met David Wilkerson.
When I was 8 years old, I was rejected by my mother. I grew up in a witchcraft home. My parents were involved in witchcraft, in voodoo, in occult. My father was a witch doctor. My mother was a medium. Hatred was the thing that was involved in my home. My mother rejected me. She called me, "Nikki, you are not my son. I don't love you. You're a son of the devil. Get away from me." That was the beginning when I started running. And from that day on, I did hate my mother guts. And it had nothing to do with my mother. I prefer to be called a bastard than to be called my mother's son. I knew New York City very well. I knew that there's going to be a rough time for me. As I stood there in New York City, I had to struggle for survival like anybody has to do. But the difference in New York City, it was a city of 8 million people. A city that was infected by all kinds of crime. the hustlers, the prostitutes, the drug addicts, the murderers, the gang was running all over that place. Later on, about at least a year later, I came to the conclusion to join this gang called the Mamas. And I talked to the president and I told him what I have to do to join the Mamas. He said, Nikki, we have 2 initiations and you have to choose one of those 2 initiations. I told him, can you tell me the first one? The first initiation, the leader himself is going to put me against the wall. I have to stand straight. I couldn't move. Then the president is going to walk toward me, and when he walked toward me, he faced me, and then he offered what you call a switchblade knife. He put his hand all the way up. That means that the initiation is going to go. Then when he got back 20 spaces. And when he come 20, then he turned around and then he dropped that knife. If that knife penetrated or stick in my flesh, I was in the game. And when he told me the first one, I told him, cool it, baby. Can you tell me the second one, because I don't like the first one at all. Then the second one, 5 of the toughest boy from the Mamas, they're going to put me against the wall, they're going to hit me, kick me, and beat me all over my body until I got unconscious. I said, all right, let the 5 boy come and pick me up. He said, but Nikki, one thing, you cannot fight back, you cannot hit back. I said, that's not fair. That's not fair. I said, that is our regulation. So I said, all right, then put me against the wall, and I tell you, they began to hit me and kick me all over my body until I got unconscious. I was let down there for 25 minutes. When I wake up, I was breathing heavily from my nose and my mouth. I was black and blue. I tried to stand on my feet, but I went down to the floor. I collapsed. There was no strength left out in my body. This guy put in my hands a 32 revolver, and I took it. Later on, I came to my room, and for 10 days, I could hardly walk. For 10 days, I was let down in my bed. I was vomiting every day. I was black and blue. I was hurt inside. My ribs, everything, my stomach, my head. But now I belong to the Mama. Now I have protection. Now I have security. Now I have a place where I can say, if somebody bother me, I got somebody to turn to. I went wild in the street. I started fighting left and right. We fought all the gangs. We started doing all kinds of things. 2 months later, I was the vice president of my gang. 6 months later, I was the president of the Mama.
As the hate-crazed gangs of New York fought for recognition and survival, God was at work in the heart of a country preacher in Pennsylvania. From the pages of Time magazine, David Wilkerson read the stunning story of savage warfare and hatred which drove the teenagers of New York's ghettos to acts of unspeakable violence. The story of the cross and the switchblade is now legendary. But in the power and wisdom of God, this country preacher found his way to New York and the crime-infested streets of its ghettos. It was there that God brought the power of love, the power of the cross, face to face with the hatred, the violence, and the desperate spiritual need of Nikki Cruz.
I was about 3 blocks down when I heard the sound of the trumpet, so I started running with my girl, and I stood there watching everything. Then this man opened a Bible. When he opened the Bible, he began to preach about God. He began to say that God has the power to change us, to change the course of mankind. That God meant us to be happy, that he can change us. And when he said that, I got offended. And I just stepped out of the crowd, and I told this man, you shut up. Don't open your mouth anymore. If you say anything, you're going to drop dead. This is no God power here, man. This is ghetto power. This is man power, and this is game power. And there's no way that God has the power to change anybody. The toughest, that is the only one who's going to make it. The wicked, they're going to perish. They're never going to make it. I told this man, you get out of here and don't come around this neighborhood. I told my gang, don't listen to this guy. Don't listen to him. This guy is a communist. I didn't know what communist was, but that's what I told him that moment. I told my gang, you want to have a good time? You want to have a good time? I give you the good time. Let's go down to this basement, smoke some grass or some marijuana, sip some wine, drop some pills, dance for a while, have a chick, and you're going to feel better. But this guy, he ain't nothing. This guy is crazy. I took my gangs and we went down to this basement. We put the music, 15 minutes later, David Wilkerson opened the door without permission. He just walked in. He didn't took the message, And the first thing he said, where's Nikki? Like he knew me for a long time. One of my boys turned the light on, and I was standing there. I put my girl on one side, and I told him, I'm Nikki, what you want, man? He told me, I want to be your friend. I told him, I don't want to be your friend. He started walking toward me and said, you better stay right there. If you make any step, I'm going to take my steady to the room and I'm going to fire and I'm going to blow your head off right here. Wilkerson hesitated for a moment, but he didn't stop. And then Wilkerson, he was a skinny man. He started walking right straight toward me. When he got near to me, he told me, come on, Nikki, shake my hand. And I just turned around and I hit him. I grabbed him by his jacket and I spit at him. And in that moment, I grabbed him, I threw him against the wall and I started cursing him. I used nothing but profanity, bad language. I hit this man left and right, and then some of the guys grabbed me and said, Nikki, this is a priest. This is a minister. This man is not, he's not in the gang. So I told him, I don't care who he is. And in that moment when he was like that, I just turned around and I started walking toward the door. And when I tried to open the door, David Wilkerson yelled at me. He said, Nikki, just a moment. Before you leave this place, I'm going to tell you something. I told him, what you going to tell me? Nikki, Jesus loves you. When David Wilkerson put his hands upon my head, he was crying. It was nothing but tears was coming out from his eyes. I looked at him as he was praying. I had never heard in my life anyone pray, but that was the most beautiful prayer that I ever heard. So beautiful that I was flabbergasted with his prayer. I was completely moved. When he said, oh God, for 2 weeks, I've been praying for Nikki every day and every night, hoping, wondering, praying, seeking that he don't get killed, so he can hear the gospel, so he can come to this crusade. And only he's in this crusade, but I'm praying for him. And oh God, in this moment, I'm here, and this is a challenge. And there's no human power, there's no personality that can change Nikki, there's no gimmick and there's no magic. And oh God, I'm scared. But in this moment, I'm going to ask you to come down and just touch Nikki's life and let a miracle come out from the darkness. Let him know that you love him as I told him that you care and you love him. He's here and I have to believe that you can do that miracle. And when I heard this man praying in that way with a broken heart, I felt his heart beat. I felt his vibration that was so strong. In that moment, I was confused. In that moment, I just want to just cry, but I hold down because of my pride. There's no way I'm going to cry because I promised myself that I will never cry again. The last time I cried, I was about 8 years old, and that was the last time I cried. And in that moment, I just took David Wilkerson's hands and I pushed his hands away from me and I pushed him. I said, get away from me. I was under conviction. I didn't know how to fight the whole thing. And in the same moment, I just want to call my games and I want to say, let's get out of here. Let's split. This is not our place. And when I turned just around, I saw with my own eyes the greatest miracle that really touched me completely. When I just turned around to call my game to split out of that place, there was Willie, the guy who told David Wilkerson, I don't believe in love. Willie the cripple. Willie that just was full of hatred and bitterness for what happened to him. Willie was there in that floor. He was kneeling down, crying and crying and crying without stopping. He couldn't pray, but I remember he tried the best he could. But the only thing that he said, Jesus, Jesus, almost 20 or 25 times. Help me, please. And he began to hit his chest. Then there was two little tiny Albert, Israel, and this guy was crying. I'm talking about the worst cry. I'm talking about the guy who was nothing but murder. I'm talking about the criminals. I'm talking about the toughest boy from the mammals. I walked toward Israel because I couldn't understand what's happening. I shook him up and said, hey, Israel, baby, what's the matter with you, man? Israel, he hardly could say anything. He was so broken. He said, Nikki, I gave my life to Jesus. At that moment, I say, oh God, I don't know if this is the truth that you love me. Like this man said that you love me. I'm confused. I am confused. I don't know what is the difference between day and night, between summer and winter. I'm lost. I can't think straight. I lost my feeling, my identity. I don't know. I cannot touch reality so far away from me. But if you really love me like this man said that you love me, come, please help me. And then just like that, in 10 minutes later, as I was still kneeling down there, I felt the most beautiful feeling in my life. I felt like that heavy burden was taken away from me, that guilt. And right there, I started crying, laughing, and crying. And I went to the workers and I said, Dave, I know that Jesus loves me because I can feel it. I know He's healing my heart. And that's the only thing that I can say. I'm healed because of the love of Jesus Christ. Jesus is beautiful. He can really change your life if you let Him.
Okay, so this is a very powerful testimony. The second time I watch, I still feel very moved by the story. Right? So this is the case where Nikki is such a hopeless man, but there's somebody who believed that he can change, right? And he called on the power of God. So sometimes for us, we try to reach people and very hard to reach. We try all means and ways, but nothing works. And so you see that the power of God was a call out. There's a dependent on God, and we can also depend on God for power to change. It can be for our loved ones, it can be for our friends. Yeah. So David Wilkerson is one who has genuine love for people, and even for especially for Nikki Cruz, right? So this is another very touching and impressive story. Nikki Cruz, not sure whether he's still around. I think David Wilkerson passed away about 15 years ago. Nikki Cruz, not sure if he's still ministering, but he's a minister evangelist. Okay, so so I think one of the interesting part about where I see the similarity of David Wilkerson in reaching out to Nikki Cruz and what we are doing, in Sing Fu Xiao Zhu is the dependent on power of God. Love is very strong. The need to love, and they say to love, 做过头, to love beyond expectations, and to give, and then and where some people are like really hopeless, cannot be changed, but with God all things are possible. So I hope this helps us to have hope and believe that God can do wonders, especially for those that are seemingly difficult, and we continue to press on. Yeah, all right. So we are done with the first part of Impress. Let me share my screen again. All right, so this is on Impress. Iru, welcome. And who else just joined? Just Iru, right? Yeah. So we're just going through, this is the first part. On Sunday, I talked about 4 main parts where that we try to meditate, try to think. One is Impress. Second is what's most important in the sermon. Third, change, what change is required. And finally, implement. So the next part is about important. So I'd like you all again to type in the chat what is most important for the sermon. Okay, put inside the chat what is most important to the sermon, and then I will put inside this. This is the exercise, okay? So so just write me with it. What is most important? What is most important in the message? This part need a little bit more thinking because you're trying to capture the essence of the message. So, Wenan, is that the essence of the message? There may be a few key points, but try to identify what you feel as what's the most important part of this message. Thank you, Wenan. Iru, Dora. Thank you. Iru leh? On the way back home, huh? Oh, okay, then never mind, it's okay. Okay, so I think most of the people have already done this part. And then, so let us just read through a bit. So God cares enough to send his son to die for us. He cares enough to pay the highest price through Jesus. Our identity is God's creation. Therefore, we can and should surrender our lives to him. Significance of bearing the image of God, character, likeness, love, creativity, thinking, morals of high value, not based on what I achieve or what others say. Our self-worth is not how we feel about ourselves, but our identity comes from God. God created us in his image. We are high value and God cares for us. God has a plan for us as his creation, what that he values. Help others to know about their image with God. Help others to know about their image with God and God's intention for us. To continue to trust and hope in Him because God does cares, even if there is no instant result or if it takes a while. Okay, so yeah, thanks for that. This part of important is something that there are two. Okay, one is something that it may be most important to you in this sermon. Okay, that you feel that is the most significant part. That one can also actually come under impress. But when we talk about important, let's try to focus on the core of the message. All right, what is the speaker? What is the preacher trying to impress upon us? Okay, so sometimes we may get it wrong, but it's okay. Sometimes we can get close to it, but I just hope that we do not deviate so far away from it. All right. So what is important? You remember the message title? The message title is what? What does it mean to be human, right? There's a question there. What does it mean to be human? And then that is linked to our image. What is your image, right? We're talking about image. So one of the key thing, one of the most important part, the root of it is the image of God. Okay, so what about the image of God? What's so important about it? That we are created in the image of high value. Okay, and why is it significant from others? Because what other people may seem in valuing themselves is based on what they achieve or what other people say. Okay, so this really forces you to try to summarize everything into a short one sentence tool, and some of you who are a bit more kiasu like me, come with a lot of points, but it's okay. And the idea is that help us to stay focused on what the message is. So if I can just use one example to say, let's say the easy one to use will be the first one. God cares enough to send His Son die for us. So over here, you see Wenan's keyword is care, right? And the question is this message focus, the most important part is the focus on God's care. So if it is focused around God's care, then perhaps the part of image will not be so relevant, right? But the focus here is really the image of God. So then all the rest will need to support the part of the image. So the caring part is one element of the image, right? And so just for us to learn in this and go together. I may not be 100% correct or accurate, but the idea is that each one of us work towards trying to extract out the essence of it, and don't just after listening to 1 hour, listening to a lot of jokes, wow, very funny, and miss out the essence of the message completely. So this will help us to think a bit. All right. Then the second part. Then the next one is about change. Now, I'd like you all to begin thinking about change. What change is required from this message? Is there a mindset change that's required? Is there a habit change? Remember, this change is not it's not application. This is simply a call of the message that says that we need to be aligned, we need to have this, we need to acquire this. We don't have, but we need to acquire this. This is the change required from the message. Doesn't really mean that you must implement it. It's to identify what change is required. Okay, so I'd like you all to put inside the chat, what is the change required from this message? There could be a few changes required. because there is habit change, there is mindset change. Okay, Dora, your change is the same as what? Okay, that's fine. So Dora's change, okay. While waiting for the rest to come in, okay, thank you, Mervin. Okay, and then I think everybody sent ready, right? Except Iru moving. It's okay. So we just run through this and then think about it. Okay, first is treat all with respect and dignity, especially the lowly and also my enemies. Is this a change that's required to treat all with respect and dignity? I would say yes. Maybe we can need to vote. Okay. Then render our lives to God, our Creator and Redeemer. Yeah, because of our image, then the change is need to render to Caesar or render to God what belongs to God. To view and regard all people as image of God. Yes. To continue to trust and hope in Him because God does cares, even if there's no instant result or if it takes a while. Okay. So that's on care. Habit change. Make time to notice the little miracles God does through His intervention in mine and others' lives. Is this a change required? To notice the miracles?
Because I think my intention was that sometimes it's very easy to dismiss it as wow, thank God, but you don't really recognize that it's God worked to do this for me, or like it's a great coincidence kind of thing, but actually it was God's intervention. I think that was my intention. Maybe I didn't really phrase it, or maybe it should be under implementation. Very sure.
Okay. Yeah, so this is, yeah, can think about it a bit. But if you ask me, if I'm the speaker, right, will I make this to become a required change? that I want everybody to notice the little miracles that God does through your intervention, because you are the image of God.
Not
bit-
really, I guess.
Yeah, so a bit difficult to match. Okay, but it's okay, we're all learning. Then how I think about myself and other people. The change is to change the way I think about myself and other people. Yes, we need to think and change the way that we look at myself and other people as the image of God. I would think that this probably can be a bit more specific. What do I think about, right? Have a bit more specifics in there. Mindset change. The value I place on myself because I'm made in God's image. Yes, this is absolutely a mindset change that is required. What value do you place on yourself? And then change to recognize that God cares. Change to recognize God cares. Yeah, I think this is okay. All right. So and then where is Dora one is trying to continue and trust. Oh, I didn't copy this. Oh, this one. Dora one. To continue to trust and hope in Him because God cares. So this one, Dora was mentioning that this is, she thought this to be the most important. So there's a difference between important and change, okay? Important is something, is about the message. Doesn't mean that it has a change. Important is the essence of the message, right? And change is really about a transformation, okay? Then
can I ask, is change like an ideal kind of thing? Like you should get there, or whereas like implementation is more personal?
So let me put it this way. This structure, these 4 points is created by myself. This is not created by pastor. I created myself for the purpose of helping me to, it's first to help me, okay? Helping me to extract the essence in the simplest form. I know I can go very deep, asking a lot of questions, but if I just want to keep it simple, I also cannot just say, what's the application? Then you become very shallow, you see? So, so it's important to extract out what impressed me, what thing that just highlight to me. God is speaking to me about certain thing, and then what's the part of important, because after the pastor gave a message on this one, and then did I miss the point or not? Okay, instead of seeing the value, I begin to see, oh, I need to give. No, that is not it. That is the outcome of the message. That is the application of the message. That is not the crux. That's not the value. All right. So we need to identify what's the significance of the message. Then finally, implement is, how can I implement starting tomorrow? So this change is specific to these two, I would say. Important and change is more from the preacher or the speaker view towards you. Okay, you're trying to learn from the speaker, the preacher, what is the essence of what's most important here, what is the change required here, okay, from this message. If you miss these 2 points out, then I think the preacher has failed his job. Okay, the speaker will come and to bring about, needs to highlight the significance of why this message is so important. Then after telling you why is it so important, then so what? What change is required? Is it just information? No, every message must have change, must have transformation. Our mindset needs to be changed, or our habit needs to be changed. Okay, then finally there's the implement. Because a change that the preacher is highlighting may be something that you are already practicing. So it is not something that you implement because you are already practicing it. Okay, so implement will be more personal now. that based on this, what's important, what is this change, and maybe even what impressed you, how will you implement this? How will you make it personal? So thanks for the question. So you can say that impress and implement is something more personal, but important and change is more focused on what is the speaker saying. Okay, now let's do the last exercise, which is implement. Now, based on the message on Sunday, then what is your implement? Of course, the other term is your application now, but I thought it's easier to have I, then another I don't have another word for C, but I like change. So implement, how are you going to implement? Okay, so throw inside your chat. Okay, how can I implement starting tomorrow? For implementation, the more specific, the better, because once you're very specific, you will know clearly whether you have implemented or not. Okay. Okay, another one is very good. That's very personal. Cheryl. Wow, all the application a bit long. Chong Hei. It's a good thing. Okay, Mervin, Dora, and Wenan. Wenan drop off already. So left with Mervin. Okay. Okay, so let's run through, thanks for that. Let's run through them, and then let's see. So first is, this is mine. Always have a plan in week to witness and follow up. So if I create a plan, I witness, I follow up, I have fulfilled this. Don't write off people who seem to be hopeless or failures. Hopeless failures. Don't write off people. Be kind to them. Believe God can surface image in them. This one will not be how do I put it? Will not be effective unless I have a name. Of course, I have a name, but not appropriate for me to write here, right? So, but if I have a name, I put it there, then you will know tomorrow, next week, whether you have executed it. Okay, here, whenever I'm frustrated over certain people, I wanted to stay away, remind myself they're all made in the image of God, regard them that way. So Anna could, to make it effective, is that who, okay, who will she meet in a week? And then because when they appear and get frustrated, then she'll remind herself, then she will implement it. Recall, give thanks and share past events that God has demonstrated his care for me. Commit my cares to him in prayer. So Cheryl, and you say share past events. So this one, recall and give thanks, this can be personal in your prayer. Then share past event, this one you have to be with somebody already, yeah, right? So if you have shared with somebody a past event that people have demonstrated, that God has demonstrated care, then you have fulfilled, you can fulfill your application. Okay, let's go on to the next. Implement. Make time to notice the little miracles God does through his intervention in my life, so that I will remember that he cares for me because he created me. I can surrender my life to him because he cares. This one can be a little bit difficult. This one may need to do a rewind. Means to say that, yeah, this is forward, right? But can you then begin to recall the little miracles in, let's say, the last week? And then say, oh, last week I recall these are the things that God did for me. And this week forward, I am going to recall and notice what is God doing in my life. Okay, so this one will need to call backwards a bit. Then show simple care to others. Listen, send regards, and so on. So this one also quite simple to implement. Dora can say, oh, I can think of 2-3 persons, and this is what I'm going to do this week for that person. Yeah. Then see myself as God's creation that is valued such that Jesus gave himself for me. This one by Mervyn. So this one is, I think, more of personal reflection in your prayer. Yeah. This one, the question is this a one-off or is this an ongoing? Yeah, because it can be put this way that you don't feel very valued for yourself, and then suddenly after this message, right, and you felt, wow, I really feel very valued, but I need to recall, I need to recognize and keep telling myself that I am God's creation, highly valued. And this week, every day, I'm going to give thanks to God for that every morning before I start. Okay, otherwise you become a sermon, application prayer, then the week float and forgotten already. So so this is what you need to think about for the implement. Okay, I hope this helps in try to capture the message. And then I think with this, some of these key points, then if you want to teach others, it will be relatively easy. I want to share something that I also captured under the impress part, talking about image of God. So Genesis 9, what happens after in Genesis 9? Noah and the family were saved, and after they were saved, then God began to tell them, okay, this is what you need to do. This is what you can eat right now. You can eat all the animals, all given to you. And then begin to talk about that you must not kill. Anybody who kill must have an account. For animal who kill, also the animal also must give an account. If man kill, the man also must give an account to God. And then after that, God gave a reason. What is the reason? The reason says that because they are made in the image of God. So then murder become, killing somebody or murder becomes, have a new meaning now. Why is murder wrong? Murder is wrong because it has to do with the image of God, not just basic morals that you don't want people to kill you, don't kill people lah, right? This is basic moral, but we take it another step further is why do we not kill? Because this person has the image of God. If I were to kill, it is in conflict with the image of God that God has put in this person, and is as effective as saying, I'm going to kill the image of God. So, murder is wrong in this manner. And I think this part, when God instructed Noah, is significant because there is no exception. It doesn't say, oh, for you who are the babies, not so important, for you who are the rich, for you who are the poor. No, there's no exception. And this applies to everybody having the image of God, and therefore hurting the other person who has the image of God will be wrong. Okay, so I hope this session helps. Do you all have any question? Any thoughts, any question? Is it very chim? Does this help? The most important part for this session, or this cell, is that I hope that with this you are able to up your level, up your bar in learning and growing from the Sunday sermon. So you're able to make better of it. I won't say make the most of it, because you want to make the most of it. I tell you, it requires a lot of effort lah. But I felt this is probably a few more that give us a good reflection and foundation for internalizing the sermon and putting it into practice, because scripture talks about hearing and practicing what we heard. Otherwise, we will be like the man who built his house on the sand and the flood washed it away. Okay, any questions, any thoughts? Do you think this will help you or this confuse you? Can I hear from, say, Cheryl? Or you are already happy doing something that you are happy with what you are doing?
Happy with what?
Are you happy with how you are processing the Sunday sermon?
So I guess usually it's just like for the application is like 2 points split into your 3 points. Usually what impressed and what is important may be the same points. And then initially I was struggling to think what is the difference between your change and your implement, because it usually comes in the same category. So basically it's like 2 points split into 4.
Yeah, but I can tell you that there's difference. Are you able to see the difference, or you don't? You generally
So
don't see the difference?
I see the difference, but I guess sometimes what impress you can be the same as what is important.
Yes, it's okay.
Yeah, so
it's okay. Yeah, I do agree. Something that impress you can also come under importance. It can come also under change and implement. And then I think implement may also vice versa on other parts. But by doing this, it forces you to think a bit more. Otherwise, you see, at the end of, normally when we say, at the end of the message, what is your change? What is your application? But after your application, you've forgotten the reason why you want to apply it, You just do and just do lah. But why do you want to do it? You will not be able to know the why unless you know why the message is important. Or remember the message is important. So so I hope that actually help us to keep a bit of what we have heard by thinking about what is important in this message. Okay, Andrea, about yourself?
Similar to that, Cheryl, I used to actually just take back one thing, but I guess now I'll take back more.
Okay. Dora?
No question.
No questions? Does this help you or does this confuse you?
I think it's okay.
It's okay? Okay. Mervin?
Yeah, I think it's a different way to like try and think deeper about to know specifically what is important and then what impressed you and all this kind of thing. Ultimately, I think for execution purposes, right, just having one item that you want to apply for the week is easier.
You probably can have one item to implement. You don't need many points. People kiasu like me will have many points.
Maybe depend on the individual. I think because sometimes also what people find is important is what had impressed them and it's what they want to change and it's what they want to implement. So yeah, I think maybe if you like is your the 4 pointers is for like if you want to go more in depth, whereby you have many things that impress you, but then after ultimately for practicality purposes, maybe there's one thing that you want to implement in the week ahead. That kind of thing. Maybe it's a more comprehensive analysis of the sermon.
Yeah. The thing that I hope that will bring us the level up is that we don't just say, okay, this is the application, I do it and that's it, but we know the why. Okay, and we also able to capture what really move our heart. That is the work of the Holy Spirit. So the part of impress is important. The part of important, the change, these two are a different way of thinking. You need to you think from the perspective of the speaker rather than yourself, so as you don't miss the point and able to capture the essence. Okay, darling, you got anything to add? No. Okay, so we over time, I just want to get one more feedback from you all regards to last Saturday's session on Genesis. After the short session on Genesis, I actually wanted to cover more, but I felt this is what we are doing is important. On last week's the Genesis sharing, I wonder if any one of you have any questions that pop up. Last week's session on Genesis, that I would say is very interesting. And when things are interesting, there would most likely have new questions that will pop up. Any questions? Dora? From Genesis?
No question.
Oh,
I also can't remember.
Okay. I didn't record. Maybe need to record.
You
And
take down notes. You take down notes, then you can remember.
No, but it was quite fun.
Yeah, fun, but you should take down, then you will remember.
Okay, okay.
what was fun?
The games.
The games.
I think there was a game, right?
Got game, I forgot got game, no. Oh, okay. All those something like MCQ and questions in. Okay. What about Andrea? Any questions from Genesis? No.
I wasn't here last week.
Okay. Cheryl, anything from
Yes.
Genesis?
I thought it was good.
Okay. Any questions arising from it?
No.
No. Okay, good.
I actually I like how you show us how to use the Blue Letter Bible. What is it? Blue
Yeah.
Bible.
Blue Letter Bible.
How to study. Yeah, that was useful.
Okay. Okay. Mervin, were you there last week? Forgot already.
Yeah, no questions.
No questions. Okay.
Mm.
All right. So hopefully next week we have a bit more time, and then we'll do a bit of study on Genesis. There's a lot more to cover. Pastor is spending 3 hours with the men every week, and I'm just extracting a very small part. I'm doing a great disfavor. Okay, but I hope with a little bit here and there that we're able to piece things up, and you are able to appreciate God more. It's very important because you see when Pastor was saying that when we talk about worshiping God, ask a new believer to worship God. What's he going to worship God about? Worship is to worship somebody who is great, who impress you, who is very impressive, right? There's wonder in there. There is a lot of awe and wonder from Genesis, and I would probably say that most of us, myself, does not know enough, think deep enough to realize that there's so much details going into there that we're just taking things for granted, like the oxygen I was sharing about. Yeah, that this man was made to pay a bill of hundreds of dollars for the oxygen that he was given to him at a hospital, and he cried, saying that the reason why he cried was not because of the bill, but because he's wondering how much he owed God for all the free oxygen that he has been breathing for the last 80 years. Right? So, okay, let me, I think we can close in prayer. Maybe, can you mute?
Every Saturday you'll be preparing the Genesis with us, right?
Okay.
Well, every Saturday you'll be going through a bit about Genesis with us, right? So do you want us to maybe read Genesis, then prepare with a list of questions so there'll be some discussion going on?
Can you hear? Can hear? Yeah. So yeah, it's good if you all can just read Genesis. I won't be covering too much. You can do chapter 1. You can do up to chapter 3 for start. I think that will be useful. Chapter 1 to max 3. That'll
1
be
to
okay.
3.
Yeah.
Okay. So be prepared to come with questions.
Okay, so
to prepare ourselves for Saturday.
yeah, come with questions. And of course, maybe we have some quiz for fun. All right, so if nothing, then can I get Cheryl, do you think you can close us in a word of prayer?
Okay, dear Heavenly Father, we give you thanks, Lord, for this time. Lord, we thank you, Lord, for being a God who cares, Lord, and Lord, that you value each and every one of us, and that you created us in your image. Lord, we pray, Lord, that we'll learn to value ourselves, Lord, and Lord, to Lord, that through the week, Lord, that we will be able to seize opportunities, Lord, to share of the good testimonies of your goodness, Lord, of your care, Lord, for us, Lord, to others, Lord, and we also want to surrender, Lord, our cares, Lord, upon you. Thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Okay, thank you very much.
Amen. Bye.
Bye. See you tomorrow.